and the Arhat stage. And it's the Arhat stage, which is the total Nibbana, without attachment. So we don't even practice just for becoming a Sotapanna or becoming a once returner or to never return. But Nibbana without residue is attaining the, Mahaparinibbana. So that's how the Venerable Punna explained this sutta, that each of those stages was for the purpose of reaching the next one and the next one until that state of full liberation has been experienced. And so after having explained that, Venerable Sariputta said, excellent, excellent, how so nicely, my questions were put to you, and you gave, how nicely you answered all of these questions. And then he said, and may I know the Venerable's name? Sariputta was asking this monk. Well, my name is Punna, and people call me Mantaniputta, the son of Mantani. So Punna Mantaniputta. He said, oh, it's a gain, it's a very gain, it's very, auspicious gain for the Sangha to have such a venerable person like the Venerable Punna Mantaniputta, so erudite in being able to explain the Dhamma. What a boon and merits for everyone to have you. Then Punna says, might I inquire the Venerable's name? So Punna was asking Sariputta, because again, he never saw Sariputta. But he had figured anybody who could ask those questions must be somebody on the ball. Anyway, so he said, can I know the Venerable's name? Well, people call me Sari, but other people know me as Sariputta, the son of Sari, because that's how some of the monks were called in those days. It's the son of so and so. He says, oh my gosh, the general of the Dhamma himself. Had I known I was, speaking with the great master Sariputta, I wouldn't have talked so much. And so these two great beings, were rejoicing in the merits of each other and enjoying each other's company like that. That's why it's such a great sutra also to know the context in which some of these sutras were talked about, So, but actually, Punna, Sariputta knew all of these stages already, of course. He wasn't like he heard these stages. But he was getting so turned on by the answers, the good answers that Punna was giving him. He wanted to, take it all the way to the end, And maybe the other one was also, they were feeding off of each other and kind of, getting a contact high off of his ability to ask good questions and his ability to answer the questions, And so it helped us spur them on to the end. But anyway, so that's the simile of the raft that we should understand. And you could apply it to the same thing like the Noble Eightfold Path. Each step of the Noble Eightfold Path is like a stepping stone to the next one. Right understanding is a way to develop right thought. And from right thought, you get inspired to then practice right speech, right action. And, the rest of the Eightfold Path. And even the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The foundation of the body is to get direct contact with the level of sensations. And the level of sensations is to be able to directly perceive the perception process in the mind. And, being able to see that is the way to understanding, the subtler Dhammas and the Four Noble Truths. So, in the same way, that same simile of the raft going to be applied to different aspects of the teaching of
the chariot.
Dhamma. What?
The chariot.
Excuse me, yeah, the simile of the chariot, thank you. The raft is a different sutra that I talked about before. But they're kind of similar, but different in that sense. So the simile of the chariot, so we shouldn't get complacent. The meaning of it is not to get complacent with whatever little mediocre happiness you might be getting from your meditation, because there's so much more to realize. But a lot of people don't know the further steps, because they don't hear, they don't really read the teachings of from the sutras, especially the teachings of the Buddha himself, and or they're practicing just to get some happiness, whatever inner peace that you might have. But you can attain inner peace, you can get some benefits of meditation, but they can be lost unless you go on to reach deeper and deeper levels. You can lose whatever, if somehow you get distracted or you start giving up your practice of meditation. A lot of those benefits that you might have gotten could easily be overcome. And some of you know, if you give up your meditation practice for a month or two, you see how the mind starts getting more, confused and so on. So that's so having said that much about this relay of chariots or the practice of the Dhamma, does anybody have any questions about any of those stages I just talked about? Yes.
Yes, Bhante, you mentioned the being easily lost in the state of jhana and going the wrong direction. At the same time, you mentioned that in order to attain the stream enterer and the various stage of enlightenment, there is a need to have at least enough tranquility of mind in order to be able to reach those states. So, does it mean, like the last time when we came to the of mindfulness, you reminded us to count our breath, 1 to 10, without getting lost in the thought, and you said that would be the first stage of jhana, if we can reach.
I don't know if I said jhana. I said it's the first stage of tranquility. That doesn't necessarily mean jhana.
Okay. So what would be the level of concentration that would be needed in order to be on the right path to stream entering?
When you start noticing how quickly different things are arising and vanishing around the breathing. So, we develop the awareness of the breathing, that connection to the breathing, because it's like an internal stabilizing, object. And it's there kind of in the middle. That's why I encourage people to focus on breathing here and not here, because this is too subtle and you can get lost in the mind and lose that contact with the body. But as you're paying attention to especially of the breathing in here, because there's many sensations, you start to notice other things, nearby, the itch here or something here, and then as you're noticing those, as the mind stays more focused, it'll start noticing more things, and then even the sounds will be zipping through the ears, You can hear sounds from this side, from above, below, from inside the body, from outside. As the mind gets clearer and clearer, it becomes like a microscope, and it starts to notice subtler and subtler and more things. So when you start doing that is usually enough. When you can start noticing that, and how quickly, and noticing subtler things, and how quickly you notice something just arise and vanish very quickly. And you can follow it moment to moment without the mind getting stuck. That is, I would say, that when you've reached enough tranquility. But there's a story, to come back to this, about the path and what is not the path. There's another story. These stories are found in the Visuddhimagga, actually. It's a very great book, for, especially in the terms of these stories and similes about the mind. There was a teacher of concentration. So there was one monk in the Buddha's day who was renowned to be a good teacher. So he had some disciples. And some of these disciples actually, attained states of wisdom and enlightenment. And so a couple of these disciples who had attained enlightenment were starting to question that, is our teacher really, is he enlightened? They started to have doubts, maybe by observing some of the teacher's behavior. When they're younger, they wouldn't know, because, but only when they themselves have reached enlightenment, they would be able to reflect back and say, this guy is not. So they questioned, because this guy was a teacher of jhana. And so they questioned the teacher. Oh, Venerable Sir, can you create an elephant? And he said, oh yeah. And so, he sat down and concentrated his mind and created the image of an elephant. Then the student said, now, have this elephant start, snorting his trunk and stomping his feet and so on. And so the teacher, with his visualization, he had this elephant, snorting and grunting and, now visualize this elephant come charging toward you. And so the teacher created this, again, it's in his mind as an image, vision, of an elephant charging toward him, and he jumped up and got scared and ran away. As he was running away, one of his enlightened students grabbed his robe and said, hey, where are you going? An enlightened person won't get scared of his own mental image. That teacher understood he wasn't enlightened. Yeah. That he mistook his powers for being the power and not the real power. So it's very interesting. But these students then taught him the real meditation, and within less than 5 minutes he attained enlightenment. So anyway, that's just in a story that illustrates this idea about what is the path and not the path, and that people can get stuck in thinking they have these powers and bliss, but it's not the real path.
Pretty important distinction. Yeah.
But to reach enough tranquility in order to have vipassana meditation, is it necessary to reach the first stage of jhana or any jhana?
Well, there's debate on that. It would be helpful, no doubt, but even the stage of what is called momentary concentration within the description of concentration, especially in the Visuddhimagga. You may not read this in the sutta itself, but there's 3 levels of concentration: momentary concentration, kanika samadhi, and then access concentration, upachara samadhi, and then there's what is called full absorption, apana samadhi. So momentary concentration is what is used in vipassana meditation, especially by the Burmese, following the Burmese method of just, being aware of the different moments of sensory stimulation. So like you're aware of sitting, but if you hear a loud sound, then you're aware of hearing arose and vanished. And then another moment, maybe there's an itch, and you can be aware of itching. And a thought or urge to scratch the itch arises in the mind, and you note, urging. And then another sound is heard, hearing. And then maybe a pain on your foot arising, it's pain. And so it's ability to note whatever is predominantly taking your attention in the moment, your ability to let whatever you were looking at before go, and just note that. But release it. You don't cling to it. You note that, and then something else comes. Because there's always something else you can notice. And so it's that ability to kind of keep up with the moment to moment. Whatever is predominantly taking your mind. Like you might be feeling some itch here, but all of a sudden a stronger one will appear over here. So you let that one go and you notice that. So you can relax around it, but then you might hear a loud sound. And the mind leaves that and notices the sound. And so it keeps going like that. So it doesn't get attached to any one particular thing because there's always something else you can notice. And even if you're absorbed in a thought, feel a pain somewhere else. Hear a sound. That'll take your mind out of that thought momentarily and to hear the sound. And then you keep that up until the mind is just flowing from moment to moment. So that's what's called momentary concentration. The axis concentration is where the five, and by doing that you suppress the hindrances, because the hindrances arise because of the mind's clinging and not being bright and clear. So by practicing momentary concentration, you can also momentarily suppress the hindrances, and the mind becomes really clear. But there's a specialized technique. The upachara samadhi is where you focus on one object and you suppress the hindrances, but not fully. Or you suppress them at least to a weak stage where they're no longer interfering with your meditation too much, and you can still get the effects of feeling the bliss and the five jhana factors come up, but in a weak stage, and it kind of comes and goes, but it's still enough to be able to develop some insights with two. And then finally there's the full absorption where those five hindrances are kept all the way kind of down, like pushing the head of a jack-in-the-box down in the box and putting on the lid. And then the jhana factors are in their full strength, being either in the present moment or absorbed on an object. So those are usually the three levels of what are called purification of mind. There's a momentary purification of mind, then the other level where it's purified to a greater degree, and then in the jhana, when it's purified while you're in the jhana, they're suppressed. So in either of those levels, you would be able to practice insight. But the problem is the bliss and the other things that come with the jhana can distract the person from going toward the insight, and they just want to hang out with the bliss and or watching whatever visions that are there in the mind. Maybe they see a deva, or they think God is talking to them or whatever. I don't know, but people get lost in all that.
Sort of a follow-up to that.
Oh.
Sorry.
What?
Am I understanding maybe that the cusp of this sort of disagreement or debate over the importance of jhana is more whether its value exceeds the potential for distraction or potential for it to become a distraction along the path? So is that basically what it is, that it has, the value of it isn't argued, but that it can become blissful and just pull you away from what you should be doing?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
Okay.
But if you have the insight not to get attached to these ornaments or trinkets, then that's the direct way that would cause your enlightenment very quickly.
That clarifies a lot for me, thank you.
So if you have the strength of jhana, you'll attain enlightenment like very fast. If you have axis concentration, it's going to take you longer, and if you have momentary concentration, it may take you even longer. That's just some kind of a comparison to them. But yes, the strength of the concentration and the strength of the keeping the hindrances suppressed lead to the penetration of the insight.
Like something like airplane, car, and cycle, or walking.
Could be,
Something important that I consider it. There are two things. How to look. It's not just looking, but it's how to look. And that became important to me because it's sort of like I compare it like a dull knife trying to cut meat or vegetables. So it's cutting, but it's dull. And so to enhance the ability of how to know, and once you look, to look with a purpose as opposed to getting in trance of what is happening. Those were tools that I consider extremely important. It's like sharpening the knife.
That's what the insight knowledges are. The insight knowledges are like sharpening the knife. When you can see how quickly the insight into rise and fall, how rapidly and clearly things are just arising and vanishing. That's like sharpening that knife very sharply. It's cutting through the surrounding delusions.
But at times also, Bhante, I noticed that even when you're seeing the falling and rising, in my own experience, I have seen it, that it finishes the rising, but it's almost like it sits for about a second, almost like waiting what's next. It's almost like a hunting, or like a hunter, and you can see the momentum, accumulating the momentum for the next track, for the next thing that comes up.
But there's no gap. There's always something instantaneously arising. Your concentration isn't sharp enough,
Okay.
or you have too much tranquility, and you're seeing a longer gap than there has to be. Because there's 5 billions of cells in this body, and they're all vibrating, and they all could be felt. It is said in the Abhidhamma, it is said that the mind is operating, this ability to mind moments of mind cognizing is operating at 10 to the 24th power in a second. Crunch some numbers. How many billions of times is that? That's occurring in the flesh of a second. So it's not like there's any gap there.
It's very subtle.
They're very subtle. That's true.
Yeah. That's
Like
right.
having an electron smashing microscope.
Right.
And that's why the stronger your jhana, the stronger your concentration, like this knife becomes sharper, it penetrates deeper.
Makes sense.
That's why most of the arahants who were attained at jhana at the time of the Buddha, not arahants, but all these ascetics at the time of the Buddha, they had practiced all the jhanas and the material jhanas too. They were very proficient in meditation. So just hearing, the Buddha just tweaked their mind a little bit and they attained enlightenment very quickly. It's because they already had the strength of that jhana.
But a technical question, do you advise that when we meditate, as we, like notice an itch or a thought, do you advise that we notice the thought but go back to the breath right away, or like getting back?
No, you don't have to go back to the
Okay.
breath. Once the mind has entered that momentary thing, the breath is no longer important.
Okay. So just notice.
Yeah. If there's nothing much, the mind will naturally rest back on it, but simply because it's the most predominant thing. But you don't have to always keep coming back. Only if the mind gets confused or it spaces out, or then you come back momentarily. But it's no longer important once you've reached that level of flowing from moment to moment.
Otherwise, it just goes to the next object, right?
Yeah, the predominant one, the ones that, because there's so many sense stimulations, but they have various intensities, right? So a very weak one, it'll take much more attention to notice it.
Yes.
But a real strong one like that, you don't have to think about that, right? The strong ones will normally take your attention, but there are subtler ones underneath that. So if something is disturbing you on a stronger level, pay attention to something just underneath it. And that the one, it's like a 1 to 10 scale. So let's say if you have a pain of 7 that's disturbing you, find a pain of 6. Something that's a little bit less, but it's still strong enough to maybe hold your attention. So the mind goes from the 7 to the 6. And the 6 is enough to keep it there so it doesn't get lost in the 7. And then once you've forgotten about the 7, you go from a 6 to a 5. And then you go from a 5 to a 4. Like that. And that's the way that you because when you're at a subtler level, you won't notice the grosser one. But when you're at the gross one, you can't notice the subtler one because it's underneath. But when you're underneath, you can still notice the one above, but you're not getting drawn to it. That's why I always say in my instructions that, while you're noticing the breath, be alert for some subtler sensations. Try to feel the pulse in your fingers or some other subtler sensations. Try to notice subtler and subtler sensations, vibrations. The people are just paying attention to the grosser ones, and that's why they don't penetrate deeper. But there's so many subtler ones, you just have to pay attention, know where they are. Especially the pulse of blood in your fingers and your feet and other little things on the face. These are great things to pay attention to because they're there, and a lot of them are pleasant, more pleasant than that bloody pain in your knee. Excuse my the people are worrying about the pain in their knee or the loss of their job or whatever, because you have nothing better to occupy your mind. Feel those pleasant sensations in the body. There's so many wonderful pleasant sensations there if you know where to look. Again, know where to look, right? People don't know where to look. What is the body? Ugh. There's a lump of pain. Do some yoga. Get some prana in there. Open it up. So many wonderful sensations. It'll help keep your mind focused, not wanting to go out or even into your thoughts.
Broaden, getting broader. Where to look.
Yes.
But in your previous one of the Dhamma talks, you talk about that bunch of mice running around like the thoughts, and then initially the thoughts are coming up over the neck most of the time, and then eventually it subsides, so there will be very less mice coming off the neck. So your sensation of feeling all these things will start occurring more and more when the mice are the thoughts subsides quite a bit. Am I saying this right?
Yes. And it's like a cat sitting on your kitchen table at night. Let's say you had a lot of mice coming in. So the mice poke their head out from the hole in the baseboard, right? Then if they see no cat, they run out over the table and eating the cheese and all that, But when the cat is there, the mouse pokes its head out and sees the cat, and it'll go back in. And the cat is the insight. The cat is our awake consciousness. It sees when a defilement is coming, see when our thought is starting to poke its head up. Thinking. And that recognition of it causes the thought to go back in a hole. So the cat refers to the alert consciousness. But if the cat is sleeping, then again the mouse will come out, testing whether the cat's awake, and go back. So that's constantly, our mind is playing cat and mouse all the time. Our consciousness is the cat and the mouse are our thoughts. Or other defilements.
Or the defilements, right?
So, awaken the cat. Next time you're meditating, this idea, this alert mind, that's like the cat sitting there. Being aware of anything starting to disturb you. That annoying sound. that thought, whatever it might be, that's the desire, hearing, thinking. It's that kind of momentary mindfulness. Anyway, it's we're getting going beyond the time, so I don't know how many people have their eyes on.
A little bit.
It doesn't look like it.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, yeah, just, Bhante, this
Very quick
is a utterly technical thing, but I know that this is being recorded, and I know some of your past things have been recorded, and they were on the website, and then they disappeared. Are they going to be put back?
On which website?
The Line of Wisdom.
I don't think
Website.
they were on the Line of Wisdom. They were on
They-
I
his
saw
Google
them.
group. We have a
It's on the-
YouTube channel now.
Oh,
It's on YouTube.
I don't have
Okay.
access to that.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
just
you
if you're getting the email, just click on the email link. Like last email came out yesterday. It has a link to that
To the page.
New Year retreat. Like it goes to YouTube page.
Okay, so there's a page that has. all
There's a
these-
special YouTube channel now
Okay.
for Lion of Wisdom.
Okay.
And
For all
And
these.
you can subscribe to it. Yeah.
subscribe to it, then you will get. And
Can you say the name of the channel?
Panya Siha Lion of Wisdom Meditation Center. Lion of Wisdom
Where?
Meditation Center. If you can type it on that, it will come up.
Yeah.
And if you subscribe to it, then as any video is getting uploaded, you'll get a notification.
Okay.
also.
Wonderful.
Maybe it might be, Prashant, good to put a link from the website to the YouTube channel as well, so.
That's
That's
excellent
what-
idea.
Yeah, we will.
I
I'm
really
going
like
to tell
that idea.
Sanjay. We already told. I don't think I told him already.
I think yeah,
Hasn't
it's
done it
coming. Like it's on request.
So
Yeah.
if you search for
Thank
Lion of Wisdom Meditation Center on YouTube, you'll see the little Bodhi leaf
Okay,
icon pop up.
so that's the one?
Yeah, just go to that and you can there'll be a subscribe button, which
Okay,
I just did.
thank you, I did not know
Perfect.
that, I kept seeing that,
And
but,
now it'll YouTube, if you have the YouTube
Yes.
app, it'll notify you when they publish a new video.
okay, thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Okay, so how many people are? If you want to stay and do another meditation, well, you can. Oh, otherwise, if you have long distance, you want to beat the snow, then feel free to go.
So-
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.